that find up and every conversation explores the art of thinking beyond the obvious. And today I have my special guest. She's a board certified pediatrician, educator, as well as an upcoming author with the 10 years of clinical experience from the office to the ER. No other than Dr. Tori Niemynski.
Hi, thank you for having me.
Welcome, Dr. Tori on Abstract Essay. Can you please introduce more about yourself that I met?
Yes, of course. So as you said, my name is Dr. Tori Niemynski. I am a pediatrician. I have been in practice for over 10 years, having spent my career in the urgent care, the emergency room, and the primary care office. So basically, any question parent has had, I have heard it, I have answered it, I have seen all the things in all the places.
Yes, and thank you so much for sharing your knowledge and wisdom to the world, Dr. Tori. Thank you. So today, let's talk about how the pediatrician can help to stop panicking over TikTok health advice. So, Dr. Tori, you are pediatric nurse at a children's hospital who's gained hundreds of thousands of followers by sharing what you witness in the ER. What compelled you to start translating those heartbreaking moments into advice for parents on TikTok? Was there a specific incident that made you feel could not stay silent?
So just to clarify, I am a pediatrician, which is a pediatric doctor, not a nurse. I actually do not have hundreds of thousands of followers on TikTok. Um,
Mm-hmm.
I am working on building up a following at this point. But I transitioned away from clinical practice to try and meet parents directly where they are because I was noticing that even in the context of our visits, parents were having so much anxiety. They were having lots of stress about things that they were seeing online in places like TikTok or, other from mom blogs or other social media influences, and just not really knowing how to interpret that information and not knowing what to do with it, and just feeling really confused and frustrated by the whole thing. And I
Mm-hmm.
realized ultimately we in the medical community had maybe been doing people a little bit of a disservice as the medical system kind of changed around all of us to all of our detriment and made time much shorter and made access harder. Parents were finding it hard to get reliable information that they could interpret easily. And so they were often turning to places like social media where there weren't a lot of doctors saying what's true and what's real with the benefit of clinical experience.
And thank you for doing that, Dr. Tori. Thank you. And can you give an example of that situation where you can see on TikTok giving this different advice, or it's not according to your profession?
Absolutely. So I would say one that's very common right now that there's been it kind of in the media in the public attention sphere recently has been the question of raw milk. So certain wellness influencers on TikTok and other platforms are recommending raw milk. They're saying it's healthier than pasteurized milk. That's what they should be feeding their families and their children. And that's simply just not the case. Pasteurization was invented so that we could prevent the spread of bacteria and bacterial illnesses from unpasteurized milk. And so we've now seen several different cases in the news where people have had to be hospitalized from the complications of bacterial infection from drinking raw milk. And that can be particularly impactful for small children. So that's just one example of things that people are hearing about or learning about online that is actually directly in opposition to what we would say in the medical community.
Certainly. So, as a doctor, what will be the first thing to do so that this will be not be well give more false information to others?
Yeah, I think my recommendation to just everybody, I mean, many of us are chronically online these days, and social media has kind of entered most everybody's life. And so I would just really caution anybody, especially parents who are looking to social media. A lot of people are looking for community and feeling like they don't really have the support and the village that they need. And so they're looking elsewhere to find that. I would just say make sure that if you are taking information from TikTok or other social media platforms, that you're being really careful about what you are hearing and taking all of that with a grain of salt. And then doing some, before you implement any of those things that you've heard, kind of doing some cross referencing, doing your due diligence to double check, maybe asking your trusted medical professionals like your pediatrician, or even just kind of gathering some additional research on the side rather than just going, oh, I heard this here. Let me try it. Let me do it, because you might not really understand all of the potential impacts. And there are a lot of implications when it comes to health, especially for children. So just recommending that people are getting their information from good and qualified sources before they run with it.
So, Dr. Tori, do you think TikTok is good for a way that producing a good information just like you? A credible information that is spread good information for people.
I think it can be. I don't have anything in particular against TikTok or any other social media platform. I am on social media platforms and I provide good information on them. But I just think it means anybody can pick up their phone or pick up a camera and start recording and saying really anything they want. There are so few regulations that it just means that the responsibility is on the receiver to really understand who is speaking, and just make sure that they're aware of credentials. If you're hearing from somebody who is a licensed doctor, somebody who has experience, somebody who has a degree that you can kind of check up on, those are more likely to be reliable sources. And if it's somebody who is calling themselves, wellness, or not really listing their credentials in a way that's clear and just kind of saying that they know the things without any real evidence behind that, I would urge people to be cautious about those people. And, other people like moms or other folks, most of that information and experience that they have to share is just based on their own personal life, and that may or may not apply to you if you're listening to it in another place with your different kids in your different situations. So just making sure you're just categorizing all of that information in the correct place and not immediately going, oh, I heard that, I should do that, without double checking.
Certainly. So, Dr. Tori, why does health content on TikTok spread so quickly, even when it's inaccurate?
Well, that's the thing. I mean, when there are no real checks and balances on platforms, on social media platforms, like I said, anybody can pick up their phone, pick up a camera, and just put it out there. And if it's catchy, or if it's controversial, or if it kind of triggers fear, which most parents have fear, they are worried. And that's a normal and natural response when you're in charge of keeping a whole human alive without a whole lot of guidance or support. And so people really are looking for something to help them with that process. And things travel far and wide. I mean, and you can't always count on what that thing is going to be. Unfortunately, real health education is not always snappy and exciting, and it's not always going to hook you in, and you can't get a lot of information out in 6 seconds or 20 seconds or whatever it is that gets the most attention. So just being really mindful about what the intention is of the content that you're consuming. Is somebody promising you a magical outcome that a doctor has not been able to recommend or provide? Those are some red flags potentially to think, oh, this is catchy content that has caught on, but just because it has hundreds of thousands of views or million views or whatever doesn't actually make it true. And that's an important thing to remember when you're going through your scroll.
Definitely, yes. So, Dr. Tori, what psychological triggers make parents especially vulnerable to viral medical misinformation?
Yeah, again, I mentioned that fear and that anxiety. I mean, the reason that I went into pediatrics is because I care about kids and I think all the kids are ours and we have to do our best to make sure that they're taken care of. And I know that parents feel that way too. They want to do every single thing they can to protect their kids and to make sure they grow up healthy and well. And so I respect that we are on the same team. Some people have misguided, in my opinion, ideas about how to go about that, but the underlying thing is the same. Parents want to do the right thing for their kid, and if they don't feel like they have trusted resources to do that, then they are very vulnerable to things that are going to trigger that fear, trigger that anxiety. And that's really what marketing is. You know, marketing is manipulation tactics to kind of prey on those vulnerabilities to sell stuff. So whether it's baby products or whether it's supplements or whether it's who knows what, you go, oh my gosh, well, if this is a thing I'm supposed to have, then I want to do the right thing for my child. So I better do it. And sometimes that can get in the way of actual appropriate care.
hmm So, Dr. Tori, how can a parents quickly evaluate whether the health video is credible or potentially harmful?
Yeah, it is a little bit hard to do that super quickly, which is why those things can be a little bit dangerous because if you're just in the middle of your scroll and you just zoom, 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 sometimes it does require a few minutes to really look into things or to evaluate whether things are true or not. So I would say if you don't want to do that research or you don't want to look into it further, then just be mindful that you heard that somewhere, but it's not something that you actually have to take on and it's not something that you actually have to implement. Um, but also, again, some of those red flags, if it sounds too good to be true, we've heard that before, it probably is. If it sounds like, oh, well, that would be a magical thing. If all I have to do is give them this gummy twice a day and all their behavior problems will be solved, then that sounds amazing. It does sound amazing, but that's not probably real life, and so being careful about those types of things is just to kind of have your radar up, to just go, that seems fishy. I'm not so sure about that. Oh, where did you get that information?" Just so that we're not kind of absorbing every single thing that comes our way.
Very well said, Dr. Tori. How does algorithm driven content amplify fear based messaging around children's health?
I mean, I think the algorithm doesn't care about your kid's health. The algorithm cares about your attention, and the algorithm cares about views, and the algorithm cares about time spent. And so the in motivations are completely in opposition to each other, right? So, things that capture your attention are more likely to be things that make you nervous or make you scared or make some big emotion in you, right? That's what the algorithm is designed to do, is to capitalize on all of your emotions. And real strong evidence-based medical information is not that exciting, to be honest. I wish it was. We try to punch it up as best we can, but at the end of the day, real facts, real information, real evidence is just kind of ho hum. And so that is not as likely to be at the top of your algorithm than the things that make people tune in and stay hooked because, oh no, now your nervous system is involved. So that is just keeping that in mind at all times, that the algorithm is for their business and not for our benefit.
Again, empowering answer, Dr. Tori. What the real risks of following home remedies or natural cures promoted without scientific evidence?
Well, that's such a big topic, and it really depends on what the issue is. I think that there are some things that really actually probably aren't a big deal. On some things online, you'll see parents saying, oh, put onions in their socks before they go to sleep, and that will draw out the toxins, or potato slices or things like that. I don't think that there is any evidence to support that claim. I don't think that that probably makes a lot of sense from a scientific perspective, but also it's very unlikely to cause harm to your child. So if you want to try that, I don't care. However, there are other things like raw milk, for example, or a lot of evidence that or a lot of content that is saying, anti-vaccine type of content, or lots of different things that can be quite harmful. And so I would recommend any holistic or kind of supplemental treatment or care that you're considering, I would just always recommend running it by your pediatrician to the greatest extent possible. If there's any potential for it to cause harm, I think that's something that's worth further evaluation, because it is really hard to know in the moment. That's why I get so nervous about parents who are kind of going rogue and doing whatever they see online, because on one end of the spectrum, it's like, who cares? And on the other end of the spectrum, it's like, oh no, that is really serious. It could end up in major illness, hospitalization. Sometimes, in the case of complications from raw milk, it can even result in death. And so it's really important to have some credentialed guidance there when it comes to these things that can be nothing and or could be incredibly impactful for your family.
Certainly, we need a guardrails for those videos. People, act
Mhm.
now, please. How should parents respond when their teen brings them a TikTok video insisting something is wrong with them?
Ooh, that's such a great question. I love that question. I think that is definitely something that I saw a lot when I was in primary care, especially during the height of the COVID pandemic, where lots of, there was this whole phenomenon of kind of TikTok ailments that teenagers had. And again, it is such a wide spectrum. That's why I don't wholesale say everything on TikTok is terrible, because it actually is information. It's just it requires now some further questioning. It requires more evaluation, because it is possible to identify with symptoms that you see online on TikTok and go, "Hey, wait a minute. That sounds a lot like me. Wait a minute. That sounds like something that I've experienced. Is this something that I should be aware of or that I should be concerned about?" And so, my recommendation, if you are a parent who has a teenager who's bringing these kinds of things to you, I would recommend taking it seriously, at least until you get to the point of asking some further questions, some follow up questions. And if it's something that they are concerned about, or after that further questioning, you are more concerned about, that's a great thing to bring to your doctor and say, "Hey, we saw these things online that have made us concerned in these ways. What do you think about that?" You know, sometimes parents and teens come in and they say, "I have this. I know it for sure. It's 100%." And it's like, that maybe is setting us up for some conflict when it doesn't necessarily need to be that way. I think approaching it with curiosity, with openness, and saying, "Okay, if these are symptoms that you're having, if this is something that you're experiencing, we can explore that further with validated measures, with scientifically evaluated tools to help us better understand whether this is something that really is something, or, does this TikTok video describe something that happens to everybody and is totally normal?" So just doing those extra steps to get to the bottom of it, rather than just going, "Aha, we definitely need medication for this."
Certainly, Dr. Tori, what are the terms like toxins, immune boosting, or hormones balancing often misused online?
Yeah, I think, gosh, these are great questions. I love this.
Mhm.
Sometimes those words don't really mean anything. That's the really harmful part of marketing, is they are not always as closely regulated as we would hope that they would be. So, what does immune boosting really mean when it comes to the marketing? Probably not a lot when it comes to the true, when you compare that to the real science. And so those are things that make you go, "Oh, That sounds good. I would like for my immune system to be boosted. Oh, I love the sound of that. When really, the things that we have science based evidence for that boost the immune system, things like vaccines, truly immune boosting solutions are, mistrusted or not embraced. Whereas these, again, easy kind of quick fixes that people might suggest are those very things. So, again, be mindful of things that are kind of buzzwords or catchy terms that sound great and would make you feel better about feeling better, but might not actually perform in the ways that they are promising.
Yes, people, be cautious
Because
and yes, definitely. And ask the expert. Just like Dr. Tori. So to wrap up our discussion for today, Dr. Tori, what impact does constant exposure to alarming health content have on parental anxiety level?
Yeah, I think that it has really raised the temperature for everybody. If you were constantly inundated with things to worry about, things that maybe wouldn't have even crossed your mind because they haven't been an issue in your household or for your child, but you're constantly hearing various things that you should be worried about, then that brings things to a high level, and now your nervous system is always going crazy, and it's harder to know what's a big deal and what isn't. So I think it just kind of makes the whole picture muddier than it really needs to be.
Certainly, Dr. Tori, thank you so much for sharing your knowledge and wisdom to the world. So, can you please invite the listeners to support your business, your advocacy, or whatever projects that you're doing right now?
Yes, absolutely. People can find me primarily on Instagram at Your Pediatrician Bestie. They can also find me on my website at meetdrtori.com. And they can sign up for my newsletter either through Instagram or the website so they can stay up to date with products, curriculum that I'm building to create more of a village, more of a community where parents can get good quality, experience-based education.
Certainly, yes, people, let's support Dr. Tori because if you support her for sure, more and more empowering advocacy like this to rise. So, Dr. Tori, thank you so much for your time.
Thank you so much for having me. I appreciate it.
Likewise, more to come, people. See you soon.